J-Tech Studios in Atlanta, Georgia. It's America's favorite game show podcast. Tell them what they've won. And now, here are your hosts, Tom Bastak and Mike Jacobs.
All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and germs and germaphobes as well. I guess we could always welcome the germs during a virus pandemic.
I don't know about welcome, but sure. I'll
I am Tom Bastak. Alongside of me,
I am Mike Jacobs.
Hi, Mike. How was your week?
Oh, just another week in quarantine. How about you?
I had a great time this week. A lot more of the same. All right, so we are back for episode number 3. We'd like to thank everybody who came in and tuned in last week for The Price is Right. As you could probably knew if you had listened through the after scene, we couldn't cover it all.
Oh, no, there's so much to that show. We easily could do another full episode.
Which I believe we should probably schedule at some point down the line. But there's so many shows to talk about, though.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Well, this week we're going to go back a little bit in time. We've got our featured show is You Bet Your Life.
Yes, indeed. Going back in time is no joke. We are going way back for this one.
So I also want to say a very warm welcome to our brand new partners, buzzerblog.com.
Yeah, absolutely. Welcome to them. Thanks for teaming up with us. They will be presenting our news and maybe some other things down the line, but yeah, they're a great website for all entertainment news, not just game shows, though they do a lot of game show stuff. So yeah, we're very, very excited to be working with them.
Yep, they've been around for a long time. 2005 they got started, and their news editor, who's a gentleman by the name of Carrion, is going to be joining us with news each and every week, and then hopefully we can kind of incorporate him into some other things. Lord knows the guy's got game show knowledge oozing from his pores.
Yeah, he's been on 6 different shows?
Yeah, I think he's won over $17,000 in total on game shows alone. So he speaks from real hardcore experience.
Yeah, I mean, to be perfectly honest, I have a fear that he might be putting us to shame.
Hey, we are just a couple of guys talking about game shows. That's our job.
Exactly. We like it. We want to talk about it.
I never claim to be an expert at any of this. If anybody would like to yell at me, you're more than welcome to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I yell at you frequently, so.
All corrections, comments, suggestions, complaints can be sent to tellthemwhatthey've.won@gmail.com. All right, Mike, are you ready for the news?
I sure am, Tom.
I can't wait to hear what Christian's got for us. Brought to you by buzzerblog.com. Here's the game show news.
Light up your cigarette, crack open a beer, put the kiddos to bed. From chaos around the world to carnage in your very own front yard, it's time for the news.
This is your game show news brought to you by buzzerblog.com. I'm Christian Carrion. Hollywood is mourning the loss of comic actor Fred Willard, who passed away Saturday of natural causes at the age of 86. Willard was best known for his roles in the films This Is Spinal Tap, Best in Show, and the Anchorman series. In the game show world, he was a panelist on Michael Strahan's $100,000 Pyramid, as well as one of the few stars to appear on all 3 standalone versions of Hollywood Squares. In 2005, Willard was also the host of What the Blank, a pilot for a revival of the classic match game for the Fox network. On Friday, ABC re-aired Ken Jennings' final regular season appearance as Jeopardy champion, which originally aired in 2004. Jennings made headlines that year as the longest-running champion in the quiz show's history, winning over $2.5 million in 74 consecutive games. In January on ABC, Jennings defeated fellow champions James Holzhauer and Brad Rutter to be declared Jeopardy's greatest player of all time. Jennings currently appears as a panelist on GSN's Masterminds. Brad Rutter, in the meantime, found his way to another ABC primetime show, helping Canadian-American actress Catherine O'Hara on her path to the grand prize on Celebrity Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. The Beetlejuice and 6 Feet Under star walked away from a $500,000 question about Thai food and ultimately won $250,000 on behalf of Upward Bound House, a Los Angeles area organization dedicated to eliminating homelessness. And this week in game show history, Michael Larson appears as a contestant on the original Press Your Luck in 1984. Larson memorized the pattern in which the show's big board displayed cash and prizes and won over $110,000. The game first aired as a two-part episode on CBS. Original host Peter Tomarkin narrated a documentary about the endeavor on GSN in 2003. This has been your game show news for the week, brought to you by BuzzerBlog. Among casual fans, industry insiders, and die-hard game show junkies, BuzzerBlog is the internet's #1 destination for game show news and information. Visit us at buzzerblog.com.
All right, thanks so much, Christian. We look forward to working with you more in the future.
I love the little this day in history tidbit.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's going to be a great addition.
All right, let's do our featured show.
Ladies and gentlemen, keep this under your hat. The secret word tonight is chair, C-H-A-I-R.
Really?
You bet your life!
Featured show this week, You Bet Your Life. Classic game show hosted by the immortal Groucho Marx. Not literally immortal, of course, but you know what I'm saying.
Is he still alive? Is that what you're saying?
Anything's possible.
You know I love talking about dead people, Michael.
Yeah, what is up with you and dead people? What keeps happening?
I don't see them, so I guess I just get to talk about them.
All right.
All right, let's talk about the show that, well, didn't start Groucho's career, clearly, but was definitely a big foray for him into radio and television life.
So he was already pretty well established at that point. He was having a lull in his career, and this really helped pick things back up. But what's interesting about the show is so simple, and it's really more of a vehicle for Groucho than it is truly a game show.
I definitely understand what you're talking about there. Groucho was like the king of improv. He always was. And, this is one of those shows that has that, was the first to be, quote unquote, filmed in front of a live audience. They didn't do it live. They actually taped it because so much of what Groucho had was improv. And there also was some written stuff that they wanted to squeeze in. But they wanted to be able to kind of let him riff, and then they would cut it up to get whatever the best was.
Well, what's interesting is when you watch the old episodes, you can really tell which jokes are improv and which jokes are written. Like, he very clearly sets up the written jokes, and they feel very pre-planned. But yeah, his improv work is second to none.
Well, it's great. So speaking of the vehicle, let's talk a little bit more about what the format was.
Right. So they had 2 to 3 what they called couples, but were not necessarily couples. There was just a man and a woman they both had. Mostly it was pre-picked contestants, but often they would pull people out of the audience. But they wanted to pre-pick people because they wanted to get interesting people who were able to sort of be lively and joke along with Groucho and sort of keep the flow of the show moving. And I mean, really, they just had to come out and answer questions and win money. It's really that simple. They just get a series of questions. There was also a secret word every episode, and if Groucho got them to say the secret word, they could win $100. And a little duck that looks like Groucho Marx, which is also, you can see it on the title card of the show. But a little duck with a cigar and the Groucho eyebrows and mustache would drop down and present the $100 to the winner. But there's just not a whole lot to the actual gameplay.
It's funny you bring up the duck. I was doing research on the duck because I was like, I wonder if this duck is in a museum somewhere or whatever. And I found that someone actually bought the backup duck. There was 2 ducks originally made. They're made of paper mache. And the backup duck was actually purchased from a collector that had it out in a small antique shop somewhere out in California. And it was bought from him, who then put it on Antiques Roadshow to get it appraised. And they came out and said it's worth between $8,000 and $12,000. Had it been actually proof that that unit had been used on a show, it would have doubled the price. Wow. But there's no real records at all as to where the original duck went to, or where it could be, or how it was destroyed, or whatever.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, if it's made from paper mache, there's no. I mean, I'm surprised the second one survived that long.
The truth is, it's in great shape. It did go to auction with one of those fancy auctions of like all the memorabilia from Hollywood. As a matter of fact, it was actually up for auction in the exact same auction that Princess Leia's slave bikini went up for auction. And it sold for about $12,500. So I don't know who bought it. I don't know where it's at now, but the duck is still around. And incidentally, I also noticed that when it got later on, and we'll talk more about this in the history of the game, that they had a girl come down instead of the duck at one point.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and actually, I think Chico came down at one point too,
I did read about that. Yeah.
Just to make a gag about it. So, all right. Well, before we get into more about the gameplay, and then of course we got the whole history that we're going to deal with, let's take a quick break, and we'll come back, and you can work on the secret word.
All right, sounds good.
Which by the way is chair.
Oh, see, you're not supposed to tell me. Now I can just say chair.
Well,
now
you heard it in the intro card. It was chair.
I wasn't listening to the intro card because I wanted to play the game fair.
Okay, well, maybe we'll do a different intro card when we come back. You've been listening to America's favorite game show podcast, Tell Them What They've Won. Hey gang, it's Mike and Tom from America's favorite game show podcast, Tell Them What They've Won, and we want to talk to you a little bit today about how we got started with Anchor.fm.
Yeah, it's interesting with so many podcasts out there, it's not as easy to get started as you might think, and it was a pretty daunting task at first, but during my research, I came across Anchor.fm, and boy, I tell you, it seems like the perfect solution for getting started.
You said it best, Mike. They had a way to grow the podcast. We had the opportunity to put our podcast out there on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all the platforms, and then make money from the beginning with minimum listenership, and then grow.
Yeah, exactly. It's the perfect platform to get everything done. They've got all the tools to edit and publish and all that kind of stuff right there, straight from your phone even. If you don't even have a computer, you can do it. And we can start small, and we'll have features to help us every step of the way.
If you're looking to get things started on your own podcast, just download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor.fm to get things started.
Ladies and gentlemen, the secret word tonight is smile. S-M-I-L-E.
Really?
You bet your life!
All right, welcome back to America's favorite game show podcast, Tell Them What They've Won. Tom, we have not yet explained why the show is called You Bet Your Life.
Yeah, that would make perfect sense, Mike. I guess we should have done that first. I'm sorry, that's probably my fault.
No, it's fine. Like I said, the show is so simple. It's easy to overlook these things. But
if you're betting your life, that's not so simple. That's a lot on the line.
Yeah, you'd think so. They are being a bit hyperbolic with the term. You are simply betting money.
I was hoping that people were going to get killed and there was dead people and. Sorry.
Not everything's about dead people. Good Lord.
All right, I'm sorry.
Anyways, so over the course of the show, contestants would bid or bet money on each question. The one that I've seen the most of, I don't know if it was necessarily the longest running format, but basically you start with $20 and then each question you wager however much you want. Obviously you add whatever you wager if you get it right, and you lose whatever you don't. And there was also like a competition between the different people as to who would win the most money. And it's weird how often people would wager like they start off with 20 and they wager 19. And I guess the theory there is if you wager all 20 and you lose, then you're just out. You got nothing. If you wager 19, then at least you have $1 left and you can continue on.
Oh, I see. Kind of like the whole like Final Jeopardy calculations that you're supposed to do when you're doing Jeopardy.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
But I think, and again, I don't have the evidence to support this, but my theory is that over time, the producers of the show realized that that's just what everybody was doing, and so that's when they started changing the wagering system, and it went through a few different iterations over the years, but it was all basically the same concept of just wager some money and try and get as many questions right as you can. And then finally, like I said, there was competition between the different couples for who would get the most money, and then that would take them to the jackpot question, where there's more money on the line, and again, it varies over the years of how much money it was, but I think it was anywhere from like $1,000 to 5,000 at the most, or something like that.
Yeah, I think 10,000 was actually in there at some point, because I think one of the shows that I watched was they had to get 4 questions right in a row in order to qualify for the big question. And I think on that episode it was 10. I want to say it was 10 grand.
Well, and I know for a while it was a rolling total where if somebody didn't get it one week, add $500 to it, and it would roll over to the next
Right,
episode.
right.
And then, yeah, if it just so happened that the couple missed everything and didn't, ended up with zero. Actually, they did it if it was less than $25. Groucho would give them a gimme question and reward them $25 for that. And they were always like the famous one was who's buried in Grant's tomb. But the one I saw was what fruit is used to make grape juice. So yeah, just these questions.
Yeah,
Obviously.
I saw a whole bunch of obvious ones too, like what color is an orange?
Right. Well, and what's great is they, like I said, they kept going back to the Grant's tomb one, and to the point where he would even reference it, and like if in the grape juice one, the person said grapes and he says Grant's tomb is correct, he kept going back to it. In an episode, they ask a guy that Grant's tomb question, and he mentions that nobody is buried in Grant's tomb because it's a mausoleum. You are entombed, not buried. It's above ground.
Wow. Did he still
Yeah.
did they give it to him anyway?
They did.
Yeah, it sounds like to me like they didn't want anybody going home with $0 kind of
Yeah,
thing.
exactly.
Which
Exactly.
by the way, personally, I love that in a game show.
Oh yeah, for sure. There are so many that you can go home with. I mean, I guess maybe there's parting gifts they don't tell you about, but you see it all the time where people go home with nothing.
We're and I'll give a little spoiler alert for our fans for stuff that's upcoming, but we're working on interviews with people that have been on game shows, so we can put together a couple of episodes about that. And one of my favorite questions for everyone is going to be, tell me about the parting gifts if you didn't win anything.
Yeah.
Because that's what they always said back in the day, we have some lovely parting gifts for you.
Right. And I can't imagine that concept has gone away. They just don't announce it anymore. I have to imagine. I don't know.
Yeah, I would have figured because they have the sponsorship. So you got to figure those sponsors are giving them something. I mean, I remember it was like, oh, well, we've got a copy of the board game for you, the take it home version, that kind of thing.
Emotional consideration provided by Mattel. All right, so then I guess we should dive a little bit into the history of the show, where it came from, all that fun stuff.
I think that would be fair. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, it began in 1947 on ABC Radio. It was just a radio show at the beginning, but it started right off the bat with Groucho as the host and a man by the name of George Fenneman, who was the announcer, and both of them stayed as host and announcer for the entire run of the show.
It's not often that you see that where you have the host and the announcer both be there for the entire run of a show.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know that I could name another example. Certainly not off the top of my head.
Well, while you're talking about George Fenneman, I'm going to go down that rabbit hole real quick. First of all, I was like, yeah, who is this poor, mild-mannered guy that literally everybody loved because he was the perfect straight man for Groucho? So I did a little work on him, and actually everybody would recognize him more from this.
Ladies and gentlemen, the story you are about to see is true. The names have been changed to protect the innocent.
Now that brings back some memories, does it not?
Oh, absolutely. I used to watch Dragnet all the time with my dad back in the day when it was on Nick and Night.
Yep. So he was the original voice of that. He also did a bunch of other work. He actually was the host of the Dean Martin, Jerry Lewis show, and he played their straight man, and they used to abuse him a lot. They would cut off his tie. They'd throw sheet music at him. I mean, Groucho was at least nice to him to an extent.
Yeah, he wasn't a punching bag, that's for sure.
And he was also a game show host. If we're talking game shows, we have to talk about the two shows that he hosted. Anybody Can Play in 1958 and Your Surprise Package in 1961.
Your surprise package. Huh?
I have now. That's the rabbit holes I did not go down. I did not go down either one of Anybody Can Play or Your Surprise Package.
I want to look more into Your Surprise Package sometime.
So well, eventually we'll hit them both. I know that for a fact, but he did a couple of pilots too that never really made it to air. So those were there. The other really cool thing is he was the host of a show called in 1963, Your Funny Films. And it was a precursor to America's Funniest Home Videos.
No kidding. What year?
63.
63. Was home videos were a thing in 63?
Apparently amateur films were being sent in. I can't imagine being the guy who has to set those reels up, 16 millimeters or whatever,
Oh, imagine the bizarre stuff they must have gotten.
I would love to know what happened to that footage.
Right? Wow.
That footage there must have been amazing. Home video footage from the 60s.
Right, I'm sure that must have been great. But like you said, there is almost twice as much footage as there is actual show for this, because every episode, while it was a half hour, 27 minutes, whatever it ended up being with commercials. I guess it wasn't commercials back then; it was just sponsorship. But anyways, they filmed for 50 minutes so that they could sort of edit it down to the best half hour for air. So there's just tons and tons and tons of unused footage from the show.
That's great. Really great.
And we also talked previously about shows that were on the big three.
Oh, yeah. Like The Price is Right was one of the very few shows that actually broadcast on all three television stations.
Yeah, exactly. ABC, NBC, and CBS. And so this is one as well, technically, though it was on the big three for radio. It was only on NBC on TV. But yeah, it hit all three of the radio stations back in the day.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah. And they started the TV version in 1950, and then it just simulcast, or not simulcast, but they played the same episode for both TV and air, because the format was so simple. It didn't matter if you had the audio or the video or not.
Right. Just thinking back to those days, it really, it makes me grin,
Yeah. Well, and what's funny is there are so many jokes that I don't play well today, and there are so many jokes that are fine today that were probably shocking back then.
Oh yeah, but I mean, just talking about it, you just look at your face. You're like, wow.
What do you mean?
No, you just have that look. You think about those days, and you just have that look.
That's true. I do have a big smile on my face.
Yay! He said the secret word.
Oh.
Boy, I had to go a long way to get you there, brother.
I like it.
All right, when we get back, we'll talk more about what's going on in the history of You Bet Your Life. You've been listening to America's favorite game show podcast. Tell them what they've won. And welcome back one more time to America's favorite game show podcast. Tell them what they've won. Episode number 3, we are talking You Bet Your Life. Mike, we touched on it right before the break briefly, which is there was some racier stuff that they got away with on this show that probably in the #MeToo world of today may not go.
Yeah, he was very, I want to say it's somewhere between flirty and aggressive with the women on that show. And they did not shy away from sexual innuendo. Man, it was actually a pretty good joke, but one of my favorites is a woman talking about how she had 9 kids, and Groucho looks at the camera in his Groucho way and says, "Oh, doesn't even wait for it to cool off."
Yeah.
I would imagine that sort of stuff raised some eyebrows back in the day, but for different reasons than I feel like they would today.
Yeah, they did cut some things. One of the things that they claimed to cut was a cigar comment that he made, which I won't delve into. Needless to say, it's been routed as being not true, a not true story. But because everything was improvised and not everything made it to air, so not all of that footage actually made it anywhere, there is plenty of stuff I'm sure that he may have said that there is no proof of down the road.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Well, and that is specifically, I know what cigar incident you're referring to, and they found the episode that supposedly took place around, and is not in the final cut. But like you say, there's twice as much footage for that show. Who knows what's in that footage that never made it?
Absolutely.
So one of the greatest things about this show is the celebrity contestants that they have had, since it began so long ago and ran for such a long time. There was plenty of time for people to get on there before they made it big. And the list of people who've been on that show is bonkers.
So you're telling me that in addition to having like true celebrities on the show, there was a bunch of people that were on the show before they became celebrities?
Yeah, absolutely. Candace Bergen, who's best known for playing Murphy Brown.
Yeah.
She was on with her dad when she was 11.
Wow.
Let's see. You had William Peter Blatty, who is best known for writing The Exorcist.
Mm-hmm. That one I knew.
He was on there, and he was dressed as a like Arabian prince or something like that.
What?
Yeah, I didn't find too much about that story, but apparently Groucho called him out on it being a costume. But that's about all I know about that. It seems like a weird situation.
That's interesting. Okay.
You had Johnny Weissmuller, who is the Olympic swimmer, best known for playing Tarzan and popularizing the now famous Tarzan yell.
Oh, wait. We can't go in. Mike, I'm going to have to make you do it. I mean, you nobody knows this out there in this podcast world, but Mike does an incredible Tarzan impersonation.
You say that? I did it once, and it just happened to be good. But sure, I'll give it another shot.
Yeah, I'm just totally pimping you out so that
we'll find out. We'll find out if that one time was just a fluke or not.
All right, here we go. Oh, great job. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
He was not the only Tarzan to be on the show. Also, his successor, Gordon Scott, did get on the show as well, but did not do the famous Tarzan call. Only Johnny.
Well, Johnny, I mean, he's the one who invented it, so it stands to reason that he would do it. Two of my personal favorite celebrities that I found that were on the show, and I couldn't confirm this first one was before or after his celebrity done, but it's a man by the name of Tor Johnson.
Okay.
If you are a fan of 50s B movies, you might know this guy. He's been in a ton of stuff, notably Plan 9 from Outer Space, heralded as the worst movie of all time.
Of all time, yeah. That I knew. I knew it was the worst movie. By the way, never seen it either.
It's, I mean, I've seen worse movies. Like, it's not well made. It's very amateurish, but like there are movies that are professionally made that are way tougher to watch. It's at least fun to watch.
Cool.
And then my absolute personal favorite celebrity that was on there, and this definitely was before he was famous, is a man by the name of Harland Sanders, also known as Colonel Sanders, the inventor of Kentucky Fried Chicken. He actually mentioned his finger-licking recipe on the air, but this was before Kentucky Fried Chicken existed.
That is absolutely amazing.
I love it.
I now I want to go and find that episode and watch it.
Yeah, I haven't found it yet, but it's probably out there. I mean, they're all over the place. There's just so much to dig through.
That's great. There's so many great people on this.
I know. I mean, we only touched the tip of the iceberg. There are so many famous people that have been on that show.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Well, and it ran for so long. It was 14 years, something like that. Ended on the radio in 1960, and then TV ran for another year after that. But it's interesting that the popularity of the show has not lasted, I guess. Like there's been some attempts at reboots, but they never really lasted very long. And it's just interesting. I guess it's because it's such a simplistic concept. They don't have the right hosts for it.
Want to just mention who the reboots were, and then we'll just talk about that in general, all three of them at the same time.
Yeah, sure. So in 80, and that ran for a year, Buddy Hackett stepped in. 88, they tried to do a version with Richard Dawson of Family Feud fame. We talked about him earlier in our first episode, but it never got picked up. I think they did the pilot episode and then just never signed on. And then in 92, 93, there was a version hosted by Bill Cosby, but again, only lasted a year. So that it kind of died.
So I have to be honest, I don't see any of them being as, first of all, charismatic.
No.
Second of all, as good off the cuff as Groucho was.
Right. I guess, I mean, I don't know much about Bill Cosby's improv, like his comedic, and I guess he did Kids Say, so it fit his oeuvre, but
what a great word. Nice word.
It just, none of them strike me as worthy of following in Groucho's footsteps.
Yeah, and we can actually hypothesize who we thought would be great in a situation like that, but I don't think I want to hurt anybody's feelings. But I will say this: we talked about this earlier, and you brought up Steve Harvey.
Yes. Well, I feel that there's some influence in Steve Harvey's hosting from Groucho, because they both they are able to make a joke out of not saying anything at all. They let the contestants say something suggestive or some kind of double entendre, and then they just do that kind of stare at the camera and
break the fourth wall. Yeah,
exactly. Groucho did the classic raise of the eyebrows and tip a cigar and that sort of thing. I think Steve Harvey does that so well, the way he will sometimes just deadpan, like, look at the audience like, can you believe this? A lot of times he really hams it up and like falls to the ground and whatnot, but I think he carries on that spirit of Groucho's reactions very well.
Well, okay, we're calling it right now. Steve Harvey will be the next reboot of You Bet Your Life.
Maybe that's what he's doing out in San Francisco, that they moved the production of Family Feud back out there.
I don't know. All right, so it's time for ratings, Mike. Your thoughts?
Well, I think for this episode, it'd be silly to rate it on anything other than ducks.
Cool.
Given the classic duck. I got to be perfectly honest on this one. I don't feel like it's aged very well in a couple of different arenas. As far as the game show goes, there's not a whole lot there. It's Groucho. That's what the appeal of this show is. So I got to give it a 2.5. I'm cutting it right in the middle, 2.5 out of 5, and saying Groucho gives it that 2.5, but I'm hesitant to give it any more because as a game show, it's just not much.
So I'm going to kind of go in agreement with you and disagreement at the same time. I think it has the staying power if Groucho is still on the show. And the truth is that this thing survives in all kinds of different ways, including a ton of DVDs, footage that's out there. It still runs occasionally. So I'm going a little bit higher. I'm going to go with 3.25 ducks for my rating. All right, Mike. Well, that's all we have time for today.
All right, Tom, thank you so much, and a special thank you to Christian and all the folks over at buzzardblog.com. Check them out for great news and entertainment updates.
And hoopla.
Lots of hoopla.
Tune in again next time. We'll bring you the latest, the greatest in the world of game shows, as well as a brand spanking new featured show, too.
And remember, as always, you can catch us online, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and, of course, tellthemwhatthey've.com.
Please subscribe, share, like, and drop a review if you like what you heard.
And if you didn't like it, to quote Groucho, next time I see you, remind me not to talk to you.
Okay, Mike. See you next week.
Bye, Tom.
You've been listening to America's favorite game show podcast, Tell Them What They've Won, a JTech audio production, copyright 2020. No part of this podcast may be reproduced by anyone without the express written consent of the creators. For more information or to contact us, please go to tellthemwhatthey'vewon.com. All right, Mike. So what did you learn this week?
I learned Groucho is a bit more of a corporate shill than I originally thought he was.
Yeah, but I think everybody was back in those days, so it is what it is. I learned that if Colonel Sanders was as open and public as he was to be on a game show talking about his secret recipe, he may have accidentally slipped and told someone, and I have a chance to find out what it is.
The secret herbs and spices.
Copyright 2020, a JTech audio production.